Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mystics at the Grocery Store. We are here for a fun episode because when this gets posted on hopefully around the 28th without any technical difficulties, in just a couple days, it will be the 31st, Halloween, which is a very fun topic in general, but also in the realm of mysticism and spirituality. There's a lot of really neat things that go into that topic. So we're excited to talk about that today because I don't know, it's just fun to talk about. And I feel like everyone who kind of grows up, at least here in the US, but of course abroad as well, Halloween is a tradition that a lot of people experience. So neat to kind of hear from everyone of what it was like for them. But before we get into that, though, I would love to check in and see how you all are doing. Adrian, how's it going?
It's going fabulous for me. Just getting back from holiday in Scotland, and I was definitely floating. And now I'm starting to settle back down, but still having that very magical, mystical enjoyment of life all around me and just living in that energy.
Yay.
That's so good to hear. It just I was so happy to see your videos from there and see all the magic. I can't wait to hear like more details about it and also just knowing what it was like before your trip and then the contrast to after. It's like incredible energy work that you did and experienced. Yeah. Um I am like settling after successfully getting my mom to her home in Greece from here. It was not an easy transition
Mm.
at all. And I was in observation of, how I was feeling. It was a lot of sadness and worry because her health, wasn't like optimal for flying, but she has a will that is, you cannot find a stronger will than she has. And so she willed herself, all the way home somehow, even with wheelchair assists and all of that. So I felt, of course, she got back, and I think her energy field turned off the electricity in her apartment. Tricked, I mean, for real. Yeah. So when she finally did call me, all of her lights were off. And she was asking me to find an electrician for her in Athens, which, because none of them were calling back. So I was like, all right, so I'm like researching electricians and knowing though in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, go to the box, go to the box, just go to the fuse box. And she's like, I'll call you back. And she comes back. She goes, I went to the fuse box and I got brave enough to flip a switch and it turned everything on. And I'm like, all right. So, I think I had a huge amount of energy that was invested in that, getting her home. And it was successful. And I called on guardian angels, and guardian angels appeared. So, yeah. So after that kind of comes that, like anytime you do a big push and then you're like, who am I?
Yes,
There I am.
there we are. Well, yay.
One thing at a time. Yay.
Glad that the mother goddess is back home.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes, good to see you guys and to be here with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. We were saying before we started that it's even been a little while since we've even seen each other's faces. So it's so good to see each other. Yeah.
So
I'm glad
good.
to be here because I just got off the 3 day, well, more than 3 days, but 3 days officially of a really big event working with my day job. And so yesterday I was quite tired coming home. Luckily, as of a few weeks ago, our hot tub finally got set up. So I got to go out and just soak and let my sore muscles release. And I got to sleep in my own bed, which is always such a joy when like you get back to your little nest and it's like super comfortable. Um, so yeah, that was really nice to kind of just settle back in. And then I just slept for like 9 or 10 hours and it was great. I think I was in bed at like 8:30 and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to bed. That's fine.
It's the best. It's the best rest.
Yeah. So that was really nice. But yeah, very excited to be back with the ladies. Okay. Well, to start us off into our topic for today, I thought I'd run through a little bit of the history of Halloween as we know it now. And just, yeah, kind of talk through some things with that. And I think everyone listening will sort of realize, like, oh, that's where that comes from, and that's where that comes from. So it's just kind of interesting to remember back to how things have spread to modern time. So, yes, so originally Halloween came from Celtic traditions of their holiday, Samhain, where they celebrated the end of summer, their harvest, and the beginning of the cold, dark winter. It was also a time that they associated with death, whether that is, I would assume, death to like crops and harvest in that sense, since, daylight is lessening, temperatures are getting colder. I would assume that was kind of related to it, but also human death as well, animal death as well. And they believed that at this time of year, the boundary between earth and, well, I guess the living and the dead really for them was sort of blurred or thinned. And so they believed that spirits were able to return to earth. And so to protect themselves, they lit bonfires, they wore costumes, and they thought that in the presence of like spirits and otherworldly energies, it made it easier for the druids and the Celtic priests to sort of be in that, I guess, liminal spiritual space to be able to predict the future and kind of tell people's fortunes, and prophecies and all things like that. And so it was a time where they sort of leaned into those practices as they prepared for, the dark, cold months ahead of them. I guess it kind of gave them something to perhaps think about or linger on when their time spent was shifted from their normal activities. And so the druids, they built the bonfires, people gathered, they burnt crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. And their costumes kind of consisted of animal heads and skins, and kind of just embracing, I guess, the different energies that would be passing at that time, as they sort of gathered to tell fortune, which I don't know, I kind of imagine in my mind that that was probably quite a, I guess, like visceral experience. I can't imagine being around a bonfire with people wearing animal skins and like, I don't know, it's so different from anything that we experience. But, and I'm just thinking, Adrian, too, like you were kind of just in the land of all of this. Like, was
Yes.
anyone talking about like old traditions like this, or did you see anything
Yeah, there was
related?
a lot of discussion, especially because we were celebrating the birthplace of Venus as well. So of course we did the bonfire by the ocean, and there was fire dances. There was just all types of ritual celebration around it. Nobody had on any animal heads, but there were, furs of sorts. It was a very mystical, magical, fairy like attire that everybody had on. And it was, the focus being the birthplace of Venus was really celebrating that womanhood of you, that nurturing, that balance, that harmony of you, and also um, releasing with the fire, just letting things go and acknowledging that cycle of birth, death, and starting it with death. Like Samhain is the very last holiday of the Wiccan holiday year. So that it was in that celebration of letting things go and letting things turn into whatever it is that they're going to turn into, to be your compost and your fertilizer underneath your feet to continue to grow for the next year. So yeah, it was definitely felt. That's why I kind of giggled, but yeah, it was definitely.
That is so fun. Well, if you have any pictures or anything, send them and maybe we could either post them or include them or something, because that's really, really cool. Makes me want to like do a little bonfire myself somehow. But I was also
In
thinking,
Texas.
yeah, because we need the heat. Maybe I'll make some marshmallows. Um, but yeah, I was thinking too, I got the image of like the ceremonial burnings of when someone passes. So instead of being like buried or
Right.
other
Absolutely.
traditions, it's like that, I guess, energy and initiation to allow the physical body to release the spirit. And yeah, so interesting. Yes. So moving from the Celtic tradition, so when the Roman Empire began to move through in like, I don't remember the exact year, but it was like AD, around AD 89 or something like that, very, very long time ago. The Romans started to move through. And so as they started conquering their land, the traditions and celebrations started to kind of mix and kind of turn into new things. And for the Romans, they had, I don't know if it was like a feast day or just a celebration in late October called Feralia. And this was when they commemorated the passing of the dead as well. So I don't know all the deep history of that, but I would assume kind of similar to the Celts, they recognized in the natural world the dying of the crops, the changing of the seasons, and it was a time for them to kind of recognize the passing of individuals within their community as well. They also had a day to honor the Roman goddess Pomona, and she was, her sort of symbol was the apple. And so, according to historical record, that may be where our bobbing for apples tradition around Halloween comes from, which is fun to think about. And maybe, if you want, do a little research about who she was, because I don't know entirely. But then as Roman influences started to take even deeper hold, in the year 609, the Pope at the time began to kind of make these commemorative days that later became All Saints Day and All Souls Day that we know now around, I think it was a broader time frame, but like the ending dates were around November 1st, 2nd, the 31st of October, all of that. So, and then in the 8th century, it said that the Pope at that time officially designated November 1st as All Saints Day. And then, of course, All Hallows Eve the night before, from all of those traditions as well, and how the name kind of changed through history and everything. So just a neat way to kind of look at how things originated. And I always like to do that to remind myself that like modern day, like we think we're so in control and that we have all these ideas that we've made. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a reminder that nope, that was like something from thousands of years ago that we've just kind of shifted and changed. So I always think that that's cool to kind of think about. So ladies, tell me, how did you kind of celebrate Halloween throughout your lives, like as kids, or what were the traditions around this time of year? Maybe you had something like a little bit different, or I don't know. How did you guys experience this time of year?
It's a really good question. I was just having trouble remembering my earliest my earliest memories, again, because I grew up with hippies and everybody was smoking weed, I'm pretty sure I don't have a memory before I was, 12. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. JK, everyone. But for real, on some level, I there was no real tradition, in my family because we did move around so much and I went back and forth. So I'm really am trying to like figure out can I remember my first costume? I don't know. I'm going to pass it to Adrian for a minute as I really dig and try to remember my very first costume. Adrian?
I remember, okay, so this brings up so much for me. So I'm going to try to just limit it really, really as much as I can. But one of my first outfits, I remember it was a mask and it was a white girl with blonde hair and she had a blue dress. And that just brings in so much for me as far as back then, there weren't any other things or for us to dress up with being somebody of color. It just really just slammed me right in the face just now as you said it, blonde hair, white face, like really just really slammed me really hard. Um, so that was one of the first ones that I remembered. Um, Probably one of the only ones. My parents really weren't big on celebrating it. And when I could remember, um, we lived in the city, New Britain. It's more of a city than Terryville. Terryville, extremely suburbs, where the streets are dark unless you have your headlights on. You can't, it's dark. You just have to know the roads, kind of a thing. Um, but I think we moved there when I was like 5 or something. Or I was very young, but I do remember having that costume and going house to house trick or treating. Da 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 da. Um, but then when we moved up to Terryville, that didn't really happen until we got older. I do remember, and I don't know the exact timeline, but um, there was racial unrest, and for a black family to move into a predominantly white neighborhood, we were. There was a cross burned on our yard, and my parents were very, very, extremely protective after that. So after that, there was no trick or treating. There were no lights on. It was none of that. Um, and so as we became older, middle school, high school, then we were allowed to kind of go out, and it was to friends' parties and things like that. Not so much door to door, um, but it was always a big thing for me. Like, what am I going to dress up like? We didn't have things to dress up into something different. My parents were not going to go out and say, okay, you can buy this costume, that costume, that. So I had to rely on friends. They would be like, well, I've got this costume if you want to borrow that. So I would go to school in my regular clothes and change into whatever it was that they had for me. And I can remember one of them, I was what's that person with the baton?
Like a cheerleader?
No, baton, but the baton, majorette.
Oh,
I wanted to be the Dallas
yeah.
Cowboy cheerleader, but the suit didn't fit, and that just set a whole nother
Oh my
traumatic
God.
experience to me. I could never be a
Adrian.
Dallas Cowboy
Adrian.
cheerleader. Oh my God. The outfit doesn't fit. Okay, so much. But I ended up being a majorette, and that was so super fun, and to appreciate what they do with that baton and catch it and still do. But anyway, so yeah, those are some of mine. And to this day, it is extremely a time for self-reflection for me, especially because it's before my birthday. And my birthday is kind of like within all those magical days. You've got the All Hallows Eve, and the next day is All Saints Day, and then it's All Souls Day, and then November 3rd is commonly thought of the Day of the Dead. So it's just like I'm like, my birthday ends all of this beautiful magical energy. This is amazing. Another great way to be Scorpio. Just saying, Scorpios. Mwah. So for me, just um, coming into introspection, like, what have I done for this year? What are the things that I want to be proud of? What are the things that I want to honor and say that, yes, those things were challenging difficulties for me, but I'm going to see them in a different view and a higher view as to what they did and how they benefited me, see them as lessons. So that's what it turns into for me, as I gotten older, that's what it turned into for me. So I love this story.
first of all, Adrian, that is, I mean, powerful. Like, that's why, I mean, it can bring up so much pain, and it is so bound up with like cultural and the neighborhood and safety, and when, you know, it's just it just, yeah, it brings up a lot, and I'm sure like that comes to mind even now, you know, like just the trick-or-treating experience is fraught, you know. It's wonderful in the best of worlds, but like the truth is, you know, and like even in my neighborhood, there's not, you know, people don't necessarily run around if they don't know their neighbors very well. And then they're, you know, it's like you don't know if you're going to be welcomed and to trick or treat, or you're going to, you know, if it's dark, I don't know. It's so, yeah, it becomes, it's interesting. It's not all fun and games to navigate, you know. It's definitely, and I certainly never experienced the, like that thing you see on Hallmark movies, you know, where everybody's going around their neighborhood, and it's just, yeah. I remember the very first, okay, what came to me was when my dad moved to New York City at some point with my then stepmother, and New York City Halloween is really actually pretty wild, because, as you could imagine, I mean, New York City is fantastic, and this was in the 80s, and so it was like, it was a great place to actually experience Halloween, because everybody was dressing up and spiders were climbing on the outside of the library, and, you know, my dad led a kazoo band dressed with a bunch of skeletons, and so we had like a lot of you know, we had a lot of fun. There was a parade with, it was so that's really is one of my first memories of it all. That was maybe my most fun Halloween experiences were there. And then otherwise, like costume wise, because I grew up with a bunch of performers, and I grew up like always having costumes on in my life. Like I was always like, well, what would I, you know, like I don't understand. Like, am I getting paid for this? You know, like, I don't know. And then everybody was always trying to borrow my costumes for when I was
I'm
like,
sure
no,
you
girl,
had the
I
best.
can't. I'm not, you know, like, okay, you don't just loan out your professional costume to people. That's your bread and butter, you know, unless you have $1 million and there's some that you're willing to loan out, like. But anyway, so it's just interesting. I think it's cool because, so for me, it was like, I can see how dressing up as something that you are not regularly is very exciting. It's very fun. It can be very freeing to embody, inhabit another personality, another entity, and which I got to do in my life, and I got to be expressive in all these different ways. So like, I sort of just, I never felt as swept up in like the Halloween costumey thing. I was like, oh, it's a day off. I can just be like a normal person with my hat on. But I of course now I'm like, I'm a witch, you know, I'm always a witch. So I love being a witch. So it's just, but yeah, So, but then it's not all around the world in the same way. Like, definitely not, you know, it's not something they do in Greece at this time. In Greece, there is kind of like a Mardi Gras type of thing, Apokrios, but it's more toward like February, or, you know, it's that other time of year, other reasons, dressing up. And I remember Sasha's grandson coming from France to experience, you know, American Halloween, which we went to a neighborhood that was like, it's like classic in New England Halloween. So he did love that. And it's wild. It's so, yeah, I don't know. I love hearing about the history, and knowing how it morphed, and especially in terms of knowing how nature based it really was, and how that sense of gathering around a fire, the sense of a ritual, the sense of like after summertime, I don't know, that expansive energy. Now we're closing in together, and we're kind of becoming another energy as a group, and it marks a transition for sure.
Yeah. That's so interesting hearing both of your experiences, because I guess mine is closer to the traditional Hallmark Halloween. And I'm sitting over here thinking like, yeah, I will refrain for what I'm about to say, but but yeah, I grew up. So I grew up I took a lot of like dance classes as a kid. So kind of Melinda, like I was in ballet and tap and like, so I had all the costumes of like little kid, like dance costumes, like cute little stuff. So when I was little, I think I wore a couple of those. And so some type of farm animal costume. And then as I got a little bit older and got into like Disney movies, I think there were definitely a couple Disney princess costumes. I think maybe Pocahontas one year because I loved her. She was my favorite, which makes sense a lot now because it was so indigenous centered and nature centered and all that stuff. But I think too, what I was remembering when you guys were kind of talking through your experience is, so my neighborhood that I grew up in had a lot of kids around my age, like a lot of families with like elementary, middle aged kids. So there were lots of families out on the street. And there were houses that people like went all in. They did like either in their front yards or in their garages, like haunted houses. And we knew which houses had like the scary stuff that we wanted to go see, or the big candy bars, you know, like you knew which ones you wanted to hit up. But I remember it turning into kind of like, I was always a very introverted kid and not super confident as a kid. And so my costumes, I always felt like, yes, I was excited to dress as them. But like as soon as I got out in the streets and saw other people, I was like, oh, mine's not as good. Like, I don't like, it was very comparative for me. Like I kind of got in my head about it when I was younger. And then as I got older, like into middle school and high school, I loved having like whenever it was on a weekend or like a Friday, I would have a bunch of my friends over to spend the night. And it was one of my favorite days of the year because we just had we would go out trick or treat with our pillowcases, fill them up with candy. We'd come back home. We'd stay up all night telling like ghost stories and spooky things and just being kids and having fun. So it turned into like a really fun thing for me. And I have a lot of really fond memories from like all that time growing up. So I feel really grateful for that because it just, I guess in my own way, it was a way to bring my little community around the hypothetical fake campfire, change that bonfire into just a mound of candy, and we all gathered. That was our tinder instead of wood. And we just ran off of sugar for a whole night. So,
sugar fire.
Yeah, sugar fire.
Exactly.
But yeah, it became something really fun for me. And so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, just thinking about, and I think you both kind of nodded to this, the idea of wearing the costume, the idea of like stepping outside of your energy. So for me, like being, you know, shy, introverted, quiet kid, it was like, oh, I can be I think one year I was like all in camo, like, you know, tough soldier, like face paint, you know, all this stuff. Like, oh, I can be that for a day. Or I took Latin in high school. So I think I had made a toga for some type of event. So I had a toga one year that I wore. And like, I don't know, it was just fun to put on the different energies, put on the different personas, and kind of have the excuse to not entirely be myself or feel like, ooh, I could act a little bit different because I'm in this thing. And like, it was a way to explore. And I didn't have a ton of outlets that I felt comfortable with other than being in dance classes as a kid. That gave me that opportunity. So it was a fun sort of thing. But what do you all think in terms of putting on different energies or putting on masks, or like, how does that resonate with you, both in terms of Halloween, but also how we kind of do that every day in a way?
Getting
That was
deep,
That was
Rosalind.
really deep. She's like jumping in, like, okay, the water's cold in here. I don't care. We're gonna shock you into this. Let's go. Talk about Uranus energy there. I just had written down the freedom of costumes. You know, that it allows you to have that freedom. That allows you to still be your vulnerable self, but yet still have that confidence, that veil of confidence all around you, in whatever costume it was that you decided. And so I love that for you, that's what you got to experience. And I tried so hard to do that for my children as well. And I would dress up as well. I remember once I dressed up as a cat in a hat. But for me, it was always, okay, what's going to be warm enough so they don't have to wear their jackets? You know, all that planning went into it. You know, like, if you're going to be an Egyptian goddess, you've got to be an Egyptian goddess in a cold climate. You know, you've got the nice little stole, cap on, and you've got something coming over your. They was like, it's going to be too much. But anyway, the fight went on. But anyway, they appreciated me because it's cold in the Northeast and Halloween sometimes. But the day-to-day veils, the day-to-day mask that we put on, well, I don't know. I don't want to say that I've come full circle, but I can definitely have a sense of wearing certain outfits so that I would feel more confident. I used to be an inspector for workers' comp insurance. So when I had to go in front of the state board to do it, an inspection review, I would wear my power suit blue. You know, here I am, a short little black girl going in with all these men. So I would wear my power blue suit. I mean, that's what I wore. And for me, I felt like I was more, I was more empowered. They were going to take me more seriously when I had that suit on, as opposed to going in and, a pink little fluffy high skirt, things like that. So I think when you work in that business field, you do need to wear a certain type of costume per se that's going to get you into that energy that you're going to feel the way that you want to represent yourself. So yeah, I can see it that way, but then I can also see that fake facade, whatever that word is. Mm-hmm. It would drop in later.
That's it. That's it.
Good. Yeah. Where you're participating in this role that really isn't true to you, and it's just too painful to take this costume off. So therefore you stay, or therefore you maintain it. So I could see it from both parts of it. And I've been in both parts of it where I kept the suit on because I kept this costume on because it just didn't make sense. Everybody else thought I was happy and I presented happy. So I must stay when I wasn't, and just not being true to self. So, but that whole fake it till you make it kind of thing, it keeps coming back to me for some reason. So that might've been what was going on with that energy on that side of the scale there.
Yeah, I really like that you bring up what you just said about how you might have been a certain way because of how you were seen. And I definitely feel like I, for a time, would wear certain things, or it's like you get into a certain way of presenting yourself for so long that you do feel like, well, if I change, I know I don't feel myself, but if I change, like, what are the reactions going to be? And like all that just twisted mind games of, can I actually be myself and how I express in the world? Or am I going to be stuck in an old version of who I am and not give myself the freedom to branch out and look a little different? Melinda, what about you? What comes up?
Well, I'm sorry to always bring up my hippies, but
We love.
but
We
the
love
hippies,
this.
but the hippie family and tribe that I was part of, with, everybody was already outside the mainstream, and the whole thing. I mean, there was nudists, and there were, I mean, it's like everybody already had a sense of like what the costuming of life was about, and how, they were rejecting it actually and being their authentic selves in all these different ways. And so, I already had a sense of like, okay, I can see the context of different environments, different ways of living, and that it is useful to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve within a certain context, whether it just get along, whether it's be having your point heard, a certain way. Like there's strategies in the costuming, and it's not always about masking your true self. It's about being relational, putting people at ease, even like not, there's a lot to it, so I think I use it as like I see that, and of course I live a life where it's very much like my own, I have my own artistic space and studio, and I'm just who I am. I get to be myself. I get to wear what I want. I have noticed, like one time I remember going into a gig where I was, because I'm just like, I'm not interested in kind of going into a place and being the queen necessarily. I want to quietly get everything done, have it be a wonderful experience. So I'll like slip into I'll be in charge of an event, but I'll be like in flats. I'll be like a mouse, I'm running around. But this one time I borrowed my daughter's shoes. She has some amazing shoes. Like really, really platform, like high heels, like, I don't know. And I walked into this place where I was organizing an event, and in her heels and in this whole like kind of like really over the top, like, I mean, people were just like stopped in their tracks to help me. And I didn't even know this would happen. Like, I really didn't know. I was just being experimental. And like the DJ was like, what can I do to, like, and I was like, oh my God, this is why people do this and dress this way. How come I never knew that, really? Like, why don't I do this more? So sometimes that was fun. But the other day, even I was finding, as I told you about my mom getting her off and through the airport, like I dress for such things. I started putting on fake nails, believe it or not. I put on fake nails, press on nails. For going to the airport to hand over documents with the nails. I felt protected. I felt empowered. I had to get through it. I had to kind of make sure I had to feel and look put together in a certain way at the airport to make sure that the representatives would, actually, because I had to do, like, we had a document, like, potential problem. Like, mom has her passport, everything's in order. That's not the point. She's a Greek citizen too, but she didn't have what they want at the airline, and I knew I had to, like, do some little magic. So I put on the nails. I put on a little bit, I put the outfit on that I felt was going to do the trick. So it was like a magic trick. And I'll do that too. I have like my outfit for going to take my husband to doctor appointments. I have I have different outfits, as I'm sure we all do, for different things where you're like, and you're kind of doing energy work around it that way. It's part of it. You're to embody the success of the experience on some level in advance. So that's what came through for me.
Yeah. I live in that every day I go into the office. I'm like, how do I want to not just be perceived, but like what energy do I want to hold? And yeah, there's outfits where I'm like, okay, I know I've got this lined up and this lined up. I need to be in this type of energy, so I'm going to wear whatever. Yeah, heels, no heels, slacks, no slacks, whatever it is. It's like clothes hold energy for sure. It's very interesting and super fun to play with. And I love I love your experiment of the heels because I can just imagine. I don't think I've ever seen you in heels. So I can just imagine people being like, "Oh my god, look at her."
I have to do it more often.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's such a fun experiment. Um yeah, man. I feel like that could be a whole other episode of like how clothes and the image that you hold holds energy and how we go through those times in life where we're like, okay, identity change is needed. Let's break the old mold and experiment. But we'll have to go into that a different time. Um, but yeah, so one other thing I wanted to talk about before we got into the weekly weather, and I'm sure this will come up because Adrian gave us a little taste before we recorded that things are really shaken up in the celestial spheres. So the thinning of the veil. So the thinning of, and not even necessarily just in terms of like, that we can perhaps sense energies more clearly or, perhaps communicate with loved ones or anything like that. What comes up for you all around that idea of thinning of the veil? Is there anything that you do at this time of year? I know I still feel like such a noob in terms of like, I've been doing the spiritual work for years, but like, I've never really said a ritual at this time of year, I've been mindful of what the time represents, but I've never really sat in a meditation or done any type of like sacred offering or anything. I mean, I'm just usually pretty mindful about it. So is there anything that you all do or that you think of when this time of year kind of thins the connection?
Like I said, for me, this is like a very magical time because it's right around my birthday. So I always go into reflection. I always go into introspection and journals of just like what this year has been for me. What I'm sitting here touching a journal as we speak, what this year has brought forward for me, what this year has illuminated, what this year has taken and lit a torch to. And things that I want to make sure that I carry forward, things that I want to make sure that I honor, but I don't carry forward with me. What poisons I'm ingesting, all these types of things start to come in for me. So for ritual is whatever I'm drawn to at that year. And it tends to be a lot of the Day of the Dead type of things, really the skeletons. I don't know what it is about skeletons. I don't know. But having them and seeing them, and even not so much when I'm at work. I don't really want to see bone when I'm at work, but when it's on when it's on X-ray, it's just super fascinating to me how these skeletal structures work so well together, and it's the basic foundation, and then everything is layered upon that. So. Yeah, I just totally went off on a tangent right there. But for me, the ritual is reflective of those things I'm honoring with release, those things that I am choosing to illuminate more, the growth patterns that I've gone through, obviously what's going on in the sky. And I try to bring in a little bit of, I don't know how to say this, presence of where I am logistically, like physically. So maybe I'll go out and get a blade of grass that speaks to me, or maybe a flower that is outside my window or something. And I just make sure that gets plucked and that it just goes onto the altar per se. It's not super extravagant. Sometimes I change out my altar cloth. Sometimes I don't. For me, it's more important that I'm setting the intention of placing these things in a space where I can see them and be in reflection of it than it is for it to be perfect. Because it, I, it's not important for it to be perfect or to look like someone else's, but I do make sure that I do have some of the elements there: fire, water, earth, air, all of that. And the air is the thought of it. I have some glacier water from Alaska that one of my swimmers brought for me. I have some red dirt from my parents' home state of Georgia that I'm going to put on my altar. And then I actually have a stick that I brought back from Scotland. I hope that's not illegal. I was out doing a walk and I was like, I need a speaking stick. And that this is going to go off on a totally another tangent, so I won't go there. But voice matters, word matters, and not having voice can be just as detrimental as that negative voice that is spoken sometimes as well. So I do have a speaking stick that will go there as well, as a reminder that my voice does matter. So yeah, those are, and cinnamon, girl, cinnamon, nutmeg, all those little spices are going to be up there. So
that's wonderful.
I'm having trouble letting that go, Adrienne, about your talking stick. I know we don't want to get on a tangent, but because before we began the episode, I pulled the Magi, I pulled the throat chakra, and I was like, wonder what that's about. I think it's about you, and I think it's about us, and I think it's about communicating, and yeah. I think that's
what's so interesting too is this morning in my meditation, I was running through my chakras and I was like, which chakra really needs some love right now? And it was the throat chakra. So I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because my voice, when I've come back, it has definitely been deeper. And even my swimmers are like, Coach, I love the way that you're saying, get on the block, start, ready, go, that kind of a thing. You're like really very deep and guttural. So, but yeah, I pulled the communication card as well today, and the celebrate your communication. So super interesting that this is all coming into our awareness, especially with what's going on up here. But yeah, go ahead, Melinda. This woman, let me just tell you, she's gonna be, I'm going to do something really simple. And then she'll do some cutouts of what each moon is going to be over these next 12 days and what stage it's going to be in. And then she'll do some drawing of it. And then she'll make some ritual dance around it. And she'll teach all of her students. Yeah. So this is going to be good. Yeah. Take note.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to review what you just said and just do that. I think that's probably true. No, I don't have it as a thought in my head right now. I do just go with, I'm aware of, and get inspiration from what is happening in the cosmos, what is happening in the season. And then I have my daily meditative practices and then I don't try to force something other than that. Like I have my liminal space that I enter and I just see what's coming through. In terms of thinning of the veil, that's a really interesting concept that I'm always kind of looking at in different ways, feeling into in different ways. I don't have some kind of specific concept around it. I'm not really interested in connecting with just any spirits from the other realms. So it's not like I sit and go, I feel like we have to be discerning. If indeed the veil thins, we must also, use our intuition and our direction of mind to connect with what it is that will truly be of benefit and not just random spooky. That's not interesting to me. I don't want that. Thank you very much. I don't want random spooky.
Cancel,
I believe cancel. I feel, whatever will be of our highest and best good. But I am kind of open to revelation that could drop in. I'm aware that this could be a good, rich time for that. So, yes. And of course, I'm always dancing through the season and have the themes and, actually, Rosalind got to be a skeleton dancer with me earlier
And a
this month.
zombie.
And a zombie.
Yes.
And we have, and this week I'll be dancing with veils because of the thinning of the veil. So I will be working with kind of veil at you. It's sort of as a wrap that you work within, and as a something that obscures but also that reveals, and playing with those things in terms of embodiment. So that's interesting. But I really think that really happens when you're sitting with your eyes closed in meditation, or maybe you're looking at a candle flame, something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I liked the idea too of like the physical veil that you just mentioned. It just made me think of like, and when we were talking about what you let in and what you don't let in terms of boundaries, how you really do have all the power to decide like what of you is revealed and what of you is contained and private and protected. We always have the power within our own energy to determine that. So hopefully that gives people confidence in terms of everyday life, but also spiritual exploration. Yeah, well, y'all gave me some ideas. I might play this year with some things and see what comes up.
Absolutely. Have fun.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I'm definitely going to get my cinnamon at the beginning of the month this month. That seems like a very important cinnamon ritual to do this month. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I've been watching Adrienne during this whole conversation, and I feel like there's topics that we've hit that her eyes have lit up because of something that she's written down that she needs to talk about during the weather. So this might be a little bit longer of an episode, but I want to get into it because I know a lot of things are going on. So Adrienne, fill us in on the weather topics, especially the ones that we've kind of noted already in our conversation. What's going on in the skies?
I'm going to tell you, Mercury is doing some really, really wonderful things this next 2 weeks, along with Uranus is doing some fabulous things. Mars is doing some fabulous things. And, just looking at the different energies, the different conversations that the planets are having with each other and the houses that they're in, it's coming to a time of recalibration, reconnection. And the reconnection is a reconnection with balance and harmony. Okay, so you're reconnecting with yourself in your trueness. And when I was researching this brought to mind, and I don't want to be too graphic about it, but it brought to mind this surgery that happens. It's called an RNA. When a dog or a cat has a foreign body, the doctors have to go in and they have to take out the foreign body. And sometimes they have to clip the intestines that's no longer viable and place it back together. And when they place it back together, it's obviously a very vulnerable, delicate state. So you don't want to overfeed. You don't want to let them have too much activity because it can dehiss. So that it brought that to my awareness because it's all about that healing balance of connection. You've got these two pieces that are trying to fit together where they were not connected before. In a physical sense, obviously they were connected because of their mechanics, but now they're connected more closely. And to be kind with that, to be gentle with that, to have grace with this reconnection. And for some of us, I don't know if all of us go through this daylight changing, that's also coming up, which is also another recalibration that's coming in because you have to think about your schedules, and you've got to remember that the time's going to be a little bit different, and the skies are going to be different at different times. So all of that is about recalibration. So for that to be, for our conversation to be talking about this before we actually go into it, it's just perfect, absolutely perfect. So when I say all this recalibration is coming into effect, it's all starting with the moon being in Capricorn. Like the moon is like, okay, let's set. let's rebuild our stability for this new recalibration that's going to start. What are the little things that we can do? What are the little things that are going to make our recalibration a little bit easier? Maybe it's meal prep. Maybe it's finally going through that pile of junk mail that you've got stuck on. That just go and just doing whatever you have to do with it. Maybe it is starting a self self healing routine, as some walking, getting up, or before you get up, maybe just saying thank you. Maybe that could be. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be just very, very simple, but just starting it, because that that's something that was missing, or that could be missing when you go through this type of cycle where there's a recalibration going on. It's a pivot, it's a recalibration. So that's what's coming up on the 28th. The 29th, Mercury's in a trine with Neptune, and it's saying, what is the truth? Mercury's saying, what's the truth? Let's look and see what the truth is. And it's in Scorpio at 29 degrees, while Neptune is in Pisces at 29 degrees. 29 degrees, that magic number, that's that wisdom number. 9 to 11, but also it's the last degree before it graduates into another sign, per se. So it's with Mercury being in Scorpio, it's talking about precision, focus, very, very practical but poetic things. So you still have that softness in there, but it's also a great time to do a checkpoint of your awareness, your awakening, because it's that energetic degree, 29 degrees. That wisdom is asking you to take movement. You've got that wisdom now. Let's do some movement with it. Let's get it to move. What is your truth? So that you can heal and move on to the next class, move on to the next sign. Okay. And then with it being in Neptune being in Pisces, it's about amplifying it, really, really showing that spirituality can really support you. Whatever your definition of spirituality is, can really support you during this, because sometimes when things get dark, you need to go into what spiritually keeps you grounded, because physically it's hard to ground. There's more stuff going on. Pluto is out of bounds, so it's the rogue professor at this point in time. I'm going to teach these lessons any way that I want to teach these lessons, because I can. It's out of bounds. It's so far away from the sun. It's not being restricted. Like the superintendent is trying to catch up to Pluto, and Pluto's like, no, this is the lesson. This is the lesson. Learn. But there's no stabilization occurring, because all these lessons are coming so fast and they're just so extreme. So the stabilization is extremely important. Stabilization, precision around truth, your truth, and accepting it. Like, this is my truth. This is my truth. Okay. And being okay with that. I really feel like this day is starting to open up a channel, and it's making us receive more creative downloads and inspirations. We talk about thinning of the veil. It doesn't necessarily have to be with spirits that have passed on. It could be with your higher self as well. So I think that's important to mention to people. It's important for us to remember as well. And it's interesting you said discernment, because again, it was one of my key words, have discernment, with what types of things you are letting come in and come through this veil, through this thinning. Yeah, this day is just we could spend a whole another hour just talking about this day alone, but it's important to check in with self, to check in with what seeds you've planted, see how they're growing. Do you need to make any pivots to get them to maybe grow a little bit differently? And also, no, I'm going to stop there. Does any of that kind of resonate with you guys? It's because it just keeps going and going and going. It's layers. Yeah.
Yeah, so much. I really like what you just said about how the thinning of the veil can be your higher self, because I think at this time of year, we're always talking about like, well, there's some that are like, oh, we got to end the year, right? We got to blah, 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 blah. But we're also preparing for a new year. And I'm thinking of like New Year's resolutions and all these things. And I don't know. I feel like this time when the seasons are changing and the days get shorter and there's more darkness, like you were saying, that there is this ability to sit with yourself and really evaluate, like, what is my truth? What do I want the end of this year and potentially this whole new year coming up for me to be about? So I really like the idea of the thinning of the veil to even just see and communicate with your own higher self and give intentional time to listen to what comes through, because I know personally, like, there's still a lot of things that I'm trying to sit with and understand within myself. And so I really like the idea of not only gaining more intentional guidance with whatever spirit I may or energy I may want to connect with outside of myself, but then also not forgetting that all of our truths lie within us anyway, if we're just allowing ourselves to listen to that. So that really stuck out with me, as well as the note about the importance of spiritually grounding, because in the darkness, it's harder to kind of find your place in where you are. It's harder to see how to right yourself or to balance yourself in a physical sense. So I'm going to take that and sit with it for quite a while. What about you, Melinda? Anything come up for you?
Yeah, I enjoy a time of recalibration. I enjoy the dark in this way. I feel that it's a good point Adrian made about the daylight saving. Usually I'm like, why, Mama? Why are we doing it? But then there's something about a little bit of discomfort, that I've come to enjoy, and as an opportunity of like, I don't like, it's like, it's not fun to, I don't know what we're doing, lose an hour, gain an hour, spring forward, fall back. Yeah. So it's definitely not fun to lose an hour, but it is definitely, you feel the change and now you have to ride the wave a little differently. And so you have an opportunity not just to recalibrate like through the mental, but your body is like, oh, and then something, you just feel like it's offering you an opportunity to shift. And I don't know, something about the body being so involved in that, even though we're culturally, like, we're just sort of deciding arbitrarily, well, not totally arbitrarily, supposedly there's lots of reasons, but sort of arbitrarily about this timing thing. But we all decided that time is shifting. So then we kind of it opens up the idea that you just can decide anything and anything can shift. If we can all decide that we're going to fall back and lose an hour, I can decide something else that might drop in. Something about that kind of intrigues me. So yeah, I like this when Adrian said moon in Capricorn, just also made me think about a skeleton. I don't know what do they rule? Does Capricorn rule the bones? I feel like maybe. I don't know. Foundation, or don't they? They all have connection.
It would
to
be the planet, but
up.
I don't remember. Something is bringing.
I'm gonna look that.
Venus or Saturn. I'd have
Seeing
to check into
in
it,
a quick search, Capricorn rules the knees, bones, skin, and teeth.
There you go. Okay. So it's like, yeah, and you said it yourself. Like you said skeleton, and then you're talking about that. There's just like the structure of our day, the structure. These are opportunities for us to recalibrate, which the universe is supporting clearly from what Adrian's saying, and it's just. I like doing that in the dark with the candle.
Yeah. I do feel like, kind of like you were saying, I'm usually grumpy about losing daylight, but this year I've kind of been like, no, I'm kind of ready to go into the darkness. Like I'm kind of ready to, I don't know, I feel like it kind of gives us an excuse to like be home maybe more, or like start to kind of unwind sooner in the day, and then in that time set aside more time for meditation, or I don't know. It just, yeah, I'm excited about it this year. And that's not like me. But come back to the actual day we fall back and I'll probably be grumpy.
It's interesting that you say that, because we do see it as we're losing. We're not really losing anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's you. I For me, I typically am working that day. So I'm either going in an hour early and that type of thing. But you get a chance to see the world through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, for how many months, but you get a chance to have an awareness and to have an appreciation for maybe the additional quiet that's going to be happening as you go and travel into work, or that additional time that you get to spend in your own home. So, yeah, I definitely can see where you're going with that. And then Mars is in a trine with Saturn at the same time, adding more stabilization in. And with Mars being in Scorpio at 25 degrees, almost anoretic, definitely mature. And Saturn in retrograde in Pisces at 25 degrees, we're looking at being comfortable in that emotional deep introspection, and adding that Piscean purpose and that discipline in there as well through the spiritual reflection. So, you kind of want to ask yourself, like, what are you plugging into that's going to assist you in getting that greater boost through. It could be like, I'm getting a vision like a boost through electrical sparks that's giving you illumination as well. But what can you do to create and maintain the structural spirituality that's going to make this season of pivot not in a, oh, we're losing, but more of a, what else can we gain through this? Maybe through this darkness, one of our other senses becomes more honed, per se. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's inviting you to also slow down with this power and not to rush it. And stay consistent with it, with the flow. And on this day, there's also an opposition to Uranus, which was that electrical that you were talking about, Melinda, that electrical realization, that electrical wake-up call. It can be a little bit disruptive, but if you've got these things in place the day before, the week before, the grounding in place, it's that wake-up call that gives you a shake, but it doesn't knock you over. So to be flexible. Uranus is, you're firm, but yet you're still flexible to experience it. And, it's a lightning bolt for a sudden shift, but it doesn't have to knock you off your wheel, knock you off your square. It can just be about that knock or that lightning bolt to give you the awareness that something is definitely changing in your finding of truth for yourself, that energy of truth that you're looking for. And when you're in my awareness, based on what's going on these next couple of days around this 14-day cycle, this day is actually like the top of it's like going up. It's like a Wednesday, you got the middle of the month, middle of the week, but this is actually like, you're right here. You're really getting a bird's eye view of everything that's going on. So you can see, yes, I really thank you for that honesty, but I see something behind this. There's something behind this that you're not speaking, not necessarily that I have to speak it or bring it into your awareness, but I see that there's something else behind it, and to hold on to it or release it in such a way that it doesn't cause detriment to the relationship, to the evolution of you. And it doesn't have to be a conversation or a relationship or even any kind of aspect with another person. It can be with something that you've agreed to, that you wrote your contract with, that's not that holds a different place in the contract that it initially did when you first signed it. I don't want to say, I don't, it's not releasing. It's releasing it in the way that it was currently being held so that you can hold it in a different way. Okay. So now you're holding it as, compost. You're honoring it. Thank you for being this. And now you are my fertilizer for me to go forward. So that's how I like to think about the releasing and the different shifts of things. That's just that one.
What was that day again? What was the day?
It's the 28th, 29th, okay. Based on where you are. It really is based on where you are. So it's 29th, 28th, but it's a very beautiful, beautiful day.
One thing you brought up, Adrienne, just a minute ago that I think is really quite powerful that I don't want to let just slip by in like a passing couple of sentences was you were saying that in the darkness, that allows us to see other things around us. And I thought that was really powerful because, to me, it's like I'm reminded of like on the nights of a new moon when that major light is diminished and gone, we're able to see all the smaller things around it that we don't normally get to see. And I'm also drawn to thinking about like imagining people that live further north during the winter months when they have a lot less daylight than we do, but then they're also in the latitudes that can see the aurora. It's like, well, yes, in the darkness, like the magic comes out, like the mystical. We can see the shifting of like the unseen usually, because there's always like the electrical impulses of auroras traveling around the earth. But it's only in the darkness that we're so able to see the beauty and the magic and the mystical kind of energies of it. And so I just thought that was super powerful. Another reason to appreciate the darkness and the ability to see with different eyes. I didn't want to let that slip by. I thought that was very important. So Melinda, I don't know. Do you want to add to that or shall we let Adrienne keep going?
No, I want to hear more from Adrienne, what is coming. So I'm ready.
So she's ready. I love what you just said about, things that are coming through in the darkness. So it is a magical time. You have to be courageous to go out into the darkness, to be in the darkness. It takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit, which again, the cosmos are supporting you with that because you just they were just all placed in a specific location where it's like, it's okay to be in the darkness. Mars is in Scorpio, and then Pluto still being out of bounds, which is one of the rulers of Scorpio, along with Mars being a ruler of Scorpio. So everybody's like in the darkness, still having their party, but not afraid. They're like, okay, they're comfortable in this atmosphere and this energy. So I think that's important to bring up as well. On the 31st and the 30th, there's not too much going on, to be honest with you. Everybody's like in their spaces. So again, it's like saying, don't rush through this. Don't rush through this. Don't be scared through it. Just let it happen. It brings up like the haunted mansion where you just want to hurry up and run through it. You don't really get to experience the scare because you're so scared. But that's what it just brought to my mind. But again, it's don't rush through it. Be through with the experience. Be in the experience. Be with it. Be a part of it. Let it be part of your inner workings. Empower it per se. And then the same thing with the first, like, it's just like, okay, we're here. We're still talking about it. And then the next major thing is that reset of the clock on the 2nd. And Venus starts to come into the conversation. And she's like, okay, we're talking about balance and beauty and harmony with this darkness. There's no need to rush through it. We're just as elegant in this darkness as we are in this daylight. She's still creating as she's walking through, her lawn train is dropping flowers and seeds, and they're just growing just as she's walking past them, and they're still in all their beauty. And the thing of it is that she is actually in an opposition with Chiron. She's in Libra. Chiron is in Aries. Aries, take action. Let's do this. Around wounds to heal. Venus with Libra, let's be elegant, let's be patient, let's be graceful with this. Yes, they're here. They're part of our story. They're part of our journey. It's part of our expedition. And let's just hold on to it. And it's asking us to value where you are in your journey and to value yourself individually. So where you are in your journey, where you are in your community, more importantly, where you that interpersonal self, that self-respect. Balance what's going on the outside. But it can't exist if you're not balanced within, if you don't have that harmony within, that self-respect within. Okay, you can say you're going to balance as much as you want on the outside. When we have that self-respect on the inside, it just doesn't go forward. Um, and it's also in a square with Jupiter. Which, again, it's about that expansion. So it's the expansion in Cancer, which is about nurturing and protection and home and family and safety. But again, we come back to that self respect that you have to be in harmony and in balance. So the two of them are holding hands together, even though they're in a square. They're make a move. You got to make a move, okay? And then the moon goes into Aries and it's telling you, you now have the courage to make a move. You have the courage to be in an honest conversation, honest communication with yourself. It could be an honest communication with somebody else as well, but it's an honest communication about this move. Like, we got to do something. We got this square going on. And then the moon comes in and says, all right, we've got to make a move. Okay. And then we come into the fourth. And while we're talking about the fourth, you've got Mars and Sagittarius. And you've got two fires right there. And Mars is saying, let's get some action. Sagittarius might be a little bit flighty with it, but Sagittarius wants freedom, wants truth, wants to share the information, but it's a little bit scattered. Aries is coming in and say, we're gonna go with this. Okay. So it's the type of energy, it's a fire energy, it's mutable. So it can be scattered, it can be erratic like this, but then you've got that Venus that just happened a few days before that's telling you to have grace and be elegant, be kind to yourself, be in yourself, self-respect, so that if it is scattered, it's okay. It's meant to be scattered at this point in time because we're going to continue to solidify it as we go through. And then we have the full moon on the 5th, pushing us outside our comfort zones. Oh my God, it's scattered. Comfort, relax, be in balance with it. It's in Taurus. So it's really talking about self-worth, your value, your relationships. What's been really, really loud to me this year is how you receive things. And just think about this simply. Oh my God, I really like that outfit you have on. And, oh, this old thing. Or do you go, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for saying that. Or how are you coming at somebody with the compliments that you're giving them? Is it truth, or are you just trying to manipulate a situation? Okay, we're not going to go down that path. But that full moon is asking you to pivot towards softness around it. You've got that Venus layered on with that, let's take some action, layered on with that, challenge of the comfort zones of Taurus energy. So it's like you're really solidifying it. So if you can imagine, here are the roots, the Venus roots. And then you have that Mars just really solidifying that root some more. And then you've got the full moon in Taurus really solidifying these new roots that you've got, this new vision that you have of yourself that all started on the 29th, that started to materialize, become into concrete, whatever, from all this vision that you had coming in. Okay. On the 6th, it deepens even further because now Venus is going into Scorpio. She's like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to go into this darkness. So don't be afraid to look at what you really truly want in your truth and yourself, Don't be afraid to look at yourself. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Take it as a challenge, but take it as a challenge that's going to make you deeper, more valuable to yourself. Look at your values. Um, and then on the 7th, Uranus is going retrograde, and it's saying, revisit all these lessons that you've learned, whether it's around AI, whether it's around something that really just shocked and rocked your boat, but let's just revisit them. Okay. And see where you have been and see where you are. Like, you get a little taste because it's stepping into Gemini for a couple of days, and you get to see where we're going. You're looking through wow, this is going to be this is going to be an amazing venue. I can't wait. And then Uranus is like, wait a minute, come on, hold on. Before we really fully step into this, let's look and see, is there anything else we need to pivot? Because this is going to be long lasting. Uranus is a professor. Boom, you have now learned this. Is there something we need to pivot so that you really feel this inside, that you are valued, and that you can have other people saying you're valued, but do you feel the value within yourself? Okay, so very, very busy. And that's just the first 7 to 9 days of November. So it's going to be it's a great month to pull out your journal. And it's a very, very good month to not be in the outer world chaos so much. Really figure out where your boundaries are. What are your values? What do you bring to the table as a community? And are you adding to the chaos or are you bringing in your groundedness, seeing through the chaos, seeing through the things that are being flamed, that are they true? Are they not true? That type of thing. So it's an interesting time. I say bring out the journals, but do something that's going to make you feel safe within yourself so that when you step outside, you still feel safe.
That is powerful. And I feel like, yeah, I just am really thinking about, you talked about Venus and then Cancer as well, the getting comfortable in the darkness. And I think that would be such a big thing to do with what you were just saying as well, of like looking at yourself and your own truth. And yeah, so get comfortable in the dark. Melinda, did anything make you want to discuss anything?
I mean, it's a beautiful reflection of what's happening in the stars and how we can harness it for practical purposes down on our earth here. It
Bringing
feels
in that Taurus.
Yeah, it feels like it is important right now to go inward so that we can really ask ourselves, what do we value? As you said, what do we really value? And do we feel our own value? And if not, maybe we're going to find ways to get help around that. Even not everything is meant to be done alone. I always want to remind everybody of that. Like, you can't think your way out of everything by yourself. Even though this is like a very introspective time, like that's important to remember, that there are, kind of energy workers, counselors, all kinds of, to help you like ping different points to help you even identify what you really truly want. Because if Chiron is in Aries, well, my Chiron is in Aries in my personal chart, which is interesting. So there could be wounding around like identifying really what it is you want. Might feel selfish, might even not even be able to surface what it is that you want. That's tricky. So that, it's just like the planets always are so fascinating to talk about, and in the abstract and then in the concrete, and throw these things around. But then it just like truly, I think, what do you value? What is important to you? And what do you want? And don't do a bunch of extra stuff that's, that isn't necessary. Like keep staying kind of within your truth for yourself. And then, yeah, that Taurus full moon. Think about in the last 6 months or from the Taurus new moon, like how far have you come in identifying some of those themes? It's interesting. So yeah, I agree with you about journaling. That's going to be really, it is important to ask yourself these questions and then to recalibrate appropriately. Yeah. Beautiful.
I feel like too, with what we've been talking about, even just the traditions of this time of year, how there is a tendency to come together with others around the fire, but how important it is that your own individual needs and wants are still being recognized, and giving yourself the time to see that and to give yourself permission to hold those things as important. And I'm thinking even, we're coming into November, that starts kind of the holiday season. So there will be a lot of time of gathering, but it's like your individual needs and wants are still important, and giving yourself time to understand what that is for you. Still very, very important. So there were so many nuggets in all of that. Thank you, Adrienne. That was lovely.
Thank you, Adrienne.
So
I love
neat.
the weather.
I know. Me too.
So people are scared with the weather that's coming. People were scared in September, and then October there was just no more fear. And it's like these planets in their conversations, they're giving you something to think about. Here's the conversation. Do you have anything to add to it? Where does it hit? Where does it reflect in you? Are there some things that are challenging? Abso-freaking-lutely. But at least like Melinda, when you were talking about you did a reading for somebody and they had the death card and they were like, and you were like, honey, now you know this is coming. There is nothing to be fearful with this card. It's the same thing for me with the planets. They're telling you the conversations. They're like, hey, here's a conversation. What does it hit? It might not hit for you. It may not. No judgment. We don't have any judgment. This is the syllabus. There's no judgment. If it doesn't resonate with you, it's okay. It's going to happen again. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's just all more opportunity to just look at yourself and dig a little deeper in the different themes of what it means to be a human on the planet. Just more opportunity.
Going back to communication and all of the cards that we pulled around communication, and conversation. Yeah, there's that solitary thing. But the truth is, many of us are afraid of conversation. Running, going a certain way, not going a certain way. It's real. People out there are afraid of conversation, and it's tricky. It is a tricky thing, and it's important to really do your energy work around that, to be able to be secure within yourself, to have a calm, this is what I want, this is what, and be able to converse, in a frequency that is not, I don't know, there's a bravery, but also a compassion needed in all the conversations. It's tricky to be human right now around the campfire.
It's another podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
We need to talk about the voice and the throat, and we need to talk about how tricky it is to be human.
Yeah.
But I will say too, I know we never really plug ourselves in what we offer, but I mean, the three of us, we all offer different things. So if you're interested in working with any of us, please look at our links in our descriptions, and if something calls to you, reach out, and we would love to work with you. I I think this conversation was fascinating. And yeah, there's so much going on right now to just evaluate ourselves in a deeper way. So to kind of wrap things up, I guess what I would hope for folks after listening to this is just to really experiment and let yourself get comfortable in the darkness. Experiment with how that allows you to see different parts of yourself. And I think also the themes that Adrian was hitting on of not rushing. Like, we're in this dark time for a while. And especially after we fall back, we'll still be feeling this for a few months. And so, yeah, challenge yourself. How can you get comfortable in the darkness, but also how can you give yourself time to see your truth just in general, but see the truth of what you want. And also give yourself the opportunity to recalibrate if that feels like something you want to venture down. What do we want to change about the masks or costumes we wear? What do we want to change about how we're expressing both in the light and in the dark? Like, what with the veil, like we talked about with Melinda, what physical veil are you using to both protect and express through?
I want the hat. I
Or the
want
hat, the tassel hat. Yes, the tassel hat. But yeah, so thank you all for tuning in with us. And we hope this was an enjoyable conversation for you as well. Leave some comments for us of how you think you'll be experimenting in the darkness and what themes come up for you around these topics. And also, like, I don't know, comment your favorite childhood Halloween costume.
Absolutely.
We want to know.
I like to also like put a challenge out there and ask people to consider what they plug into to make them feel safe. What is it that grounds them?
Yeah.
And if you don't understand the word grounding, what is it that you plug into that makes you feel safe? That feeling of when you're sick and you go home and you get under the covers and you've got a nice warm tea or a nice soup, that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
You can think of that as grounding.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
work
a great
with
challenge.
work with Venus, work with the feel good
Absolutely.
things that are going to make you feel cozy and comfortable and safe. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we will see you all in another couple of weeks. Enjoy Halloween if you celebrate or not, and enjoy the mystical energies of the season. And we will see you soon. Bye.
See you soon, everybody.
Happy Scorpio season, everybody.